All right, let's jump into this fascinating concept, infinite games, from Simon Sinek's book. It's a whole new take on how we think about success. The excerpts you sent over are really intriguing.
Oh, it's a powerful framework, for understanding not just competition, but really even our everyday choices. Sinek's argument is that recognizing the infinite nature of so many of these games we're in, from business to our personal lives, well, it's crucial for creating lasting impact.
So right off the bat, Sinek makes this distinction: finite games versus infinite games. And I think we all get the finite ones. There's rules, a clear winner, a loser. Like, picture a basketball game or, a round of poker.
Exactly. Define boundaries, right? But then he says there are these infinite games where the objective, it kind of shifts. It's less about a single victory and more about staying in the game, adapting, being able to outlast, the challenges. Geopolitics, that's a great example. It's an ongoing process. There's no final scoreboard.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Sinek argues that a lot of leaders get tripped up. They apply finite thinking to these infinite scenarios.
You're spot on. They become fixated on short-term wins. They obsess over beating their rivals. And in doing so, they end up building cultures that, well, they actually stifle innovation over the long haul.
He uses a very powerful example, the Vietnam War. The U.S. went in with this goal of winning, but North Vietnam, they were playing a completely different game. It was about survival. And Sinek says this clash of mindsets, that's what led to the U.S. exhausting its resources, its will to even keep going.
A sobering reminder, isn't it, of how that finite approach can backfire. So Sinek proposes an alternative, the just cause.
Okay, so break that down. What is a just cause? It's more than just a fancy mission statement.
Oh, absolutely. It's a vivid and aspirational vision. It's what guides your actions. Think of it like a compass pointing you beyond just profits or products. It's about creating a lasting, positive mark on the world.
Sinek points to Apple in the early days. Their just cause was empowering individuals through computers, a stand against Big Brother. And he argues this is what fueled their innovative spirit, helped them outmaneuver companies like Microsoft, who, in his view, were stuck just reacting to Apple's moves.
And that's such a valuable lesson, not just for CEOs or, big companies. Having a purpose that goes beyond just winning that just cause, that can provide the fuel, the drive to really thrive in the infinite game.
Now, another key to this whole infinite game approach is what Sinek calls trusting teams.
Ah, yes, that's critical. We're talking about creating an environment where people, individuals, feel safe being vulnerable, admitting when they've messed up, asking for help without fear of judgment.
So it's about that psychological safety leading to better communication, more effective problem solving.
Exactly. Sinek shares this great example from Shell Oil. They transformed the culture on the URSA oil rig. By encouraging vulnerability, even emotional expression, they created a safer and more collaborative environment.
And, it produced real results, right? Better performance, fewer accidents.
Yeah.
So investing in a team's well-being, it's not just some soft stuff.
Yep.
It has a direct impact on the bottom line.
The URSA example is so powerful because it happened in an industry with, incredibly high stakes. It really demonstrates that even in those toughest settings, that trust can be a complete game changer.
Let's shift gears a bit to something Sinek calls ethical fading. This feels, incredibly relevant today.
Ethical fading, it's that subtle process where as short-term results take over, the ethical lines start to blur. Companies start prioritizing profits over people, and this leads to scandals, a loss of trust. It ultimately harms the very systems that they operate within.
The example he uses is Mylan, the company that makes the EpiPen. They aggressively raised prices, it seemed, to meet their bonus targets, almost disregarding, or at least appearing to, the impact on people's health.
A classic case, I think, of how finite thinking can lead to that ethical fading. And it damages a company's reputation. It makes you ask, at what cost are we chasing these goals? Are we willing to sacrifice our values for some short-term gain?
This brings us to another concept, worthy rivals. So it's not just about, crushing the competition.
Not at all. Infinite game players, they actually recognize worthy rivals. They see them as those who push them to improve. The focus shifts from simply winning to continuous progress, and that elevates the entire game.
He uses the example of those tennis legends, Chris Evert and Martina Navratilova. They had this fierce rivalry, but it wasn't about destroying each other. It was about constantly raising their own game.
Precisely. Competition, but it spurred growth, not this kind of zero-sum battle. It's a good reminder that in so many fields, strong competitors actually benefit everyone. They drive innovation, they set a higher bar.
Okay, so we've got finite versus infinite games, the just cause, trusting teams, ethical fading, and worthy rivals. Ready for another one? Sinek introduces something he calls cause blindness.
Ah, yes. Cause blindness. It's when we become so fixated on our own cause, on being right, that we become blind to the merits of any opposing viewpoints.
Like wearing blinders. We miss out on learning opportunities because we're so convinced that we have all the answers already.
Especially dangerous, I think, in today's world, which is so polarized. We have to remember that even those we disagree with, they can offer valuable insights. Embracing diverse viewpoints, that's vital for navigating the infinite game.
And that kind of leads us to Sinek's concept of existential flexibility.
Existential flexibility. It's about embracing change, being willing to adapt your strategy as the world. It keeps evolving. It's the opposite of clinging to those outdated models when everything else is shifting.
He uses Kodak's downfall as a cautionary tale. They invented the digital camera, but they failed to adapt to that whole digital photography revolution. And it ultimately led to their decline.
A stark reminder, right, that in the infinite game, if you're standing still, you're actually falling behind. We have to be willing to challenge those assumptions, to experiment, to evolve, just to stay in the game.
So all of this points to, a really big question. What does it actually require to lead with an infinite mindset?
It takes courage. The courage to defy those traditional notions of business, to embrace a more purpose-driven approach, prioritizing long-term value, not just for shareholders, but for all stakeholders.
Sinek uses the example of CVS. They made the decision to stop selling cigarettes, even though it meant potential financial losses. This bold move, it aligned with their stated purpose, promoting health. It was a commitment to the infinite game of building a healthier society.
A powerful demonstration, right? A company making a difficult, but ultimately a really beneficial decision that aligned with their just cause. It's about making choices that contribute to that bigger goal, not just taking the easy path.
Now, we've been looking at these concepts mostly in the context of business, but Sinek argues that an infinite mindset can change our personal lives too. So what does that look like?
Well, it means applying these principles to areas like parenting, our friendships, even how we approach our own learning. By adopting that infinite mindset, we can build deeper connections, we can contribute to a better future for those around us.
He contrasts finite parenting, which often focuses on those external markers of success, with an infinite approach, helping children discover their passions, helping them live fulfilling lives.
It's about shifting the focus from just results to the process, from winning to growing. In the infinite game of parenting, the goal is to equip children with the skills and values they need to navigate their own paths. So, diving deeper into Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game, our talk about actionable wisdom, it's a great place to start thinking about, actually applying this infinite mindset.
And we briefly touched on this idea of the Chief Visionary Officer, the CEO, and how it's distinct from the traditional CEO role, which is often more focused on just the executive duties.
Right, and Sinek uses a really interesting historical example to highlight this. He compares the leadership styles of George Washington and John Adams during the American Revolution.
Okay, that comparison has me curious. How does it illuminate leading with an infinite mindset?
Well, he argues that while both men, were brilliant leaders in their own right, their strengths were different. Washington, he excelled at articulating the vision, galvanizing people to action. He was the embodiment of that CVO role, safeguarding the just cause.
Which, in the case of the American Revolution, was the pursuit of independence from British rule.
Right, exactly. Washington understood that this struggle, it was more than just battles. It was about securing a future where the colonies could govern themselves, forge their own destiny. He was playing the infinite game of nation building.
And what about Adams? Where did he fit into this game?
Adams, he was brilliant at strategy, policy, administration. He mastered the finite game, excelling at those tasks needed to achieve specific goals. He was instrumental in drafting the Declaration of Independence, establishing the framework for this, brand new nation.
So it sounds like they represented two sides of the same coin, both essential for success in this grand endeavor.
That's it. Washington provided the inspiring vision, the just cause that rallied the people, while Adams built the structures, the strategies to turn that vision into reality. Together, they formed this formidable partnership, each playing their part in the infinite game of, birthing a new nation.
It's amazing how this historical parallel reflects that modern concept of the CBO collaborating with, say, the COO or the CFO. It underlines how you need diverse leadership skills, balanced perspectives to achieve sustainable success in, really any infinite game.
Indeed. And it highlights a key takeaway. Leadership isn't about finding one perfect person who embodies all the qualities. It's about building a leadership team with complementary strengths, each member contributing their unique talents to pursuing that just cause.
Now, Sinek also addresses the challenge, right? Leading with an infinite mindset when you've got pressure from investors, from the market, who are often laser-focused on those immediate results. How does he reconcile that tension?
He acknowledges that the pressure is real, especially for publicly traded companies where it's all about those quarterly earnings reports. But he argues that giving into that pressure, sacrificing long-term aspirations for those short-term gains, it ultimately leads to disaster.
It's like winning a small battle, but losing the entire war.
Exactly. He uses this analogy of a farmer who's pressured to maximize crop yield. They could overuse fertilizers, pesticides. It might boost production briefly, but it depletes the soil, makes the land unsustainable in the long run.
That's a powerful image, illustrating the dangers of those short-sighted decisions. But how can leaders actually withstand this pressure and stay focused on the infinite game?
Sinek outlines a few strategies. First, it's about building a strong organizational culture that prioritizes the just cause, that values that long-term thinking. It means articulating the vision clearly, celebrating milestones along the way, and rewarding behaviors that support that larger purpose.
So creating an environment where everyone understands that the game is bigger than just hitting quarterly targets. It's about building something that's truly lasting and meaningful.
You got it. And this cultural transformation, it often extends beyond the company itself. It's about engaging with investors who share that long-term perspective, who are willing to support the company's just cause, even if it means, potentially foregoing some of those immediate gains.
It sounds like finding the right investors is crucial, those who align with the company's vision, who understand the whole infinite game framework.
Absolutely. It's about creating alliances with investors who are in it for the long haul, who embrace the company's mission and are willing to weather those market fluctuations.
This brings us back to the importance of trusting teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sinek argues that building a culture of trust within an organization that's essential for navigating those, the inherent challenges of the infinite game. Why is that trust so critical in this context?
Because trust is the foundation for psychological safety. It allows teams to communicate openly and honestly, to take risks, to learn from their mistakes without fear of punishment. And in the constantly changing landscape of the infinite game, creating this kind of environment is crucial of my actions.
And that's the power of the infinite game mindset, isn't it? It invites us to play a different game altogether, one where the emphasis is on contributing to something bigger than ourselves, on creating a legacy that transcends our own time. It's a challenging path, for sure, but also a profoundly rewarding one.
Our deep dive into the infinite game has been incredibly enlightening. We've explored the core principles, analyzed compelling examples, unpacked thought-provoking metaphors. As we wrap up, is there anything else that stands out to you as particularly impactful or relevant for our listener?
For me, it's the reminder that the infinite game, it's not about reaching some ultimate victory, some final destination. It's about the journey itself, the ongoing process of learning, of growing, of striving to make a positive contribution.
It's about embracing those challenges, those setbacks, seeing them as opportunities to learn and grow, and never losing sight of that just cause that drives us.
As we conclude our exploration, I want to encourage our listener to think about the infinite games that they are playing in their own lives. What are your just causes? Who are your worthy rivals? How are you building those cathedrals that will stand the test of time?
And remember, the infinite game, it's not about winning or losing. It's about continuing to play, adapting, contributing to something larger than yourself. And in that pursuit, you'll find the real meaning, the fulfillment that comes from embracing an infinite mindset.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep playing the infinite game.
And remember, these 10 key takeaways from Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game.
Number 1, distinguish the game. Figure out if you're in a finite game with a clear winner or an infinite game that has no end.
Number 2, define your just cause. Create a clear, specific, and inspiring vision that goes beyond just those short-term goals.
Number 3, build those trusting teams. Foster that psychological safety. Encourage vulnerability, open communication, and collaboration.
Number 4, beware of ethical fading. Hold on to your ethical principles, especially when you're under pressure to deliver those quick results.
Number 5, embrace worthy rivals. See your competitors as sources of inspiration and motivation to constantly improve.
Number 6, fight cause blindness. Be open to different perspectives, even those that challenge your own beliefs.
Number 7, develop that existential flexibility. Embrace change, adapt your strategies to stay relevant in an ever-changing world.
Number 8, lead with courage. Challenge the conventional way of thinking and prioritize creating long-term value for everyone involved, not just shareholders.
Number 9, apply the infinite mindset to all of life. Take these principles beyond your work and apply them to your personal relationships, how you parent, and even how you approach learning.
And number 10, focus on continuous play. Strive to make a lasting impact that extends beyond your own time in the game.
By putting these takeaways into action, you can shift your mindset and create a more fulfilling, impactful life. Thanks for listening.